Yeah, well, here we are. It is Saturday night when we have had the weather impact alert starting. That red that's been on the 7-day all week long, showing Saturday night through the day Sunday into Monday morning, is now here. So now it's just hurry up and wait, right? Just waiting for things to kind of take shape. And so far, they're really not taking shape for us at this point. Of course, we weren't expecting that it would at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It is 49 degrees here currently, so a little bit above freezing. Not only that, we don't have anything falling down, no rain out there. So we're going to say somewhere 33, 32, somewhere in there, and that's the problem, is this number. Where is that going to be as we go through the overnight into tomorrow morning? Again, mainly north of Macon, and if you've been kind of keeping score with us throughout the week, watching this graph model that I'm going to show you in a minute, it has been kind of the outlier as far as other models. I'll show you that in a minute. First, let's talk about this. Again, this is going to be mainly tonight into tomorrow morning if we see anything. It's mainly the farther north you go, which has been the story all week. Then tomorrow we get, again, think of it like a three-legged stool here. So tonight, do we see any wintry mix or ice, mainly north? Tomorrow, a line of strong to possibly severe storms that will be coming through mainly our southern half. And then tomorrow night into Monday morning, anything that is wet on the ground, which will be everything, so we will have had a lot of rain tomorrow, will that freeze for long enough going into Monday morning? So three different things to kind of think about. Look at these numbers, man. Have they been impressive as we've been going through the day today? I saw a 0 on the board in Kansas City earlier, but they're doing fine now. They've warmed all the way up to 3. We're looking at 9, 5, 14 on the board, and here it is, our little corner of the world. We have nice stuff. Anybody want to go to South Florida? I'm driving. We will all go where it's in the 80s there. So let's take a look as we zoom in at the numbers. And this is kind of what we expected. The wedge still trying to build into northeast Georgia, that wedge of cold air coming in here. So eventually kind of wedging itself in. And the question is, how far south is that freezing line number? The edge of the wedge, as I call it. So looks like it's still going to be kind of marginal, the whole thing on the line, and then warmer as you go south. And there is a look at the numbers. The coldest thing we have is 46 on the board, and a handful of spots, 50s as you go south. But again, this is not the time that we thought we were going to see anything anyway. Just to show you, it is cooler than this time yesterday, but way too warm for anything to be an issue. The wind has been a factor and has been kind of becoming more of a factor as we've been going through the day today. Wind gusts occasionally 10 to 12. They might pick up some as we go on through tonight. Some numbers could be maybe around 20 miles an hour, something like that. So it feels like not a big deal, but it already feels like 41 in some of our northern counties. But again, that's just the sensible feel to the skin when standing outside. With the higher the wind gusts, obviously it makes it feel colder. Radar is empty here. As we look at the big picture, I take away the clouds here, you can see some wintry stuff up in North Georgia, a little bit of a mix going on there. And then as we move the map out, I mean, look at the acreage that is taken up by this storm system. It is a doozy. Oh, this is not cloud cover. I've taken the clouds off. This is all snow all the way back to New Mexico there. And then you can see the rain as you get down New Orleans into southern parts of Mississippi there. And in between, that's the problem zone in that pink shaded area where we see a sleet, freezing rain, ice mix. And that's the main problem. It's not fun. Nobody wants to be in that part of the storm, but there are a lot of folks that are. Let's take a look at those winter weather alerts there. You can see the blue is a winter weather advisory. So basically what this is saying is our northern counties, these are the most likely areas. Makes sense, right? But again, any little deviation of this freezing line as we go through tonight, we could be looking at Macon, Irwinton, places like that could see a little bit of ice. I mean, it's a game of inches here when you get into these sort of situations where it's just rain or then all of a sudden it's freezing on contact. The ice storm, obviously, up here into the northeast, northern part of the state in the purple. Ice accumulation, if we saw anything, probably be like 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch, which again, it doesn't take much to cause a problem, to put a little glaze on things and make it very difficult to drive or even walk around on the back porch and all that. Just to show the extreme impact, northeast Georgia, high impact Atlanta to Athens, Griffin to Milledgeville, a little bit kind of middle of the road, and then as we get down into our area, talking about the Macon area, even lower threat. And you can see, again, very minor if we saw anything here, but we're mainly keeping an eye out with all this alert stuff. It's mainly focusing on our friends here in our northern counties. Maybe 1/4 of an inch ice, and again, the wind gusts 20 to 30, things like that. Why is that important? Well, if you got like 1/4 of an inch of ice on tree limbs and power lines, and then you have a 30-mile-per-hour wind gust swinging this stuff around, that's when things can snap. and start to kind of bend in ways they're not supposed to and cause bigger problems out there. And obviously much bigger problems as you get up into North Georgia. So here is the latest graph model with the numbers. Now this is important if you've been watching all week. I was getting into it earlier that the graph has been an outlier, meaning all the models have been mainly showing our northern counties into northeast Georgia with no freezing temps in the Macon area southward. The graph for many days had been showing, I don't know about that. We're going to pull this down through Macon, Warner Robins, and maybe still have something as we go through tonight. It has started to correct, and I was wondering last night if it was going to do that to fall in line with the other models. Last night, looking at this model, it showed at like 2 in the morning we were at 32. Now it shows 37. As we go into the morning hours, 34, Macon, Warner Robins, Dublin. And on this latest graph, we never hit freezing in the Macon area. So this is the first time starting this morning, we're starting to do this, jumping on board with the other models. So now there's really not a model that is showing freezing rain for like the Macon area southward. But again, it's a game of inches. It could be, right now that line is just above Macon. It could come a little bit lower, and we'll see how that goes. There is tomorrow morning. Again, you can see the lower numbers here, and you're like, what is that green mountain over there? Well, again, that's that other weird thing that starts to change tomorrow. So again, think of it as 3 phases. Do we see any ice in our northern counties as we go through tonight into tomorrow morning? Phase 2, a warm-up coming in, a warm front coming in. The wedge is going to hold firm in the spot where the wedge is going to be strongest here. But that warm air is going to come up as we go through the day tomorrow and start beating some of this out toward the north. And look at this, 40s maybe in our northern counties during the day, 70 plus as you get into our southern counties. And again, right along through there where these air masses are kind of clash, this is where we're going to see thunderstorms that could have some gusty winds there with that. And then it starts to move across as we go into tomorrow night. And then this is, once these storms are gone, this gets into phase 3 of the situation, which is one that most people seem to be asking about, at least in my experience, has been like, well, what about, the weekend's the weekend. What about Monday morning? Do we go to work? Do we go to school? Well, it is going to go freezing Monday morning, but again, it's going to take a while to get there. Here is around 11 o'clock tomorrow night, looking at 40s still. Even as we get into 3 in the morning, we may still be in the upper 30s. Finally, we start to hit freezing, but it may be around 5, 6, 7 in the morning. And then we're only there through 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. By the time we get into 10, we're starting to jump up. So we may be talking about 4 to 5 hours of freezing. Is that long enough to cause a problem on the roads? We'll have to wait and see. But there will be some freezing. It's just not an all night long thing where it's a true hard freeze all night. It would be kind of a flash freeze with whatever's on the ground there. Then we do warm up during the day, not a ton, to maybe upper 30s to low 40s here, a little bit warmer as you go south. And then once we go Monday night into Tuesday, that's when the numbers drop down significantly there. So much colder as we get all into next week, some crazy low numbers. So as a look at all the numbers on Future Review, let's take a look and see how that mixes in with the precipitation as it's coming across. There's North Georgia tonight. And again, if you've been following this model with us as we've been going through this week, it was dragging that pink shaded area all the way down here. And I was drawing all over the map last night, past couple nights, saying, is it going to jump on board with these other models and start to pull this back up toward the north? And you can see that it kind of does, but it does go almost to kind of Macon right here as we go into around 3 or 4 in the morning. But it never really pushes way down like it was doing last night. So again, it's right on the edge, it's right on the line. All it takes is 32 to jump down a little bit farther. Just a few miles will make a big difference when it's right above the Macon area here. This is around 5, 6 in the morning, then things start to kind of pull away. And then round 2 starts to get closer, and this is the one with storms. There's noon tomorrow. And you can see the warm wind arrows coming up with that warm front right there. As we go through the middle of the day into the early afternoon, this is when that line of thunderstorms probably kind of like a little bit Macon southward. Some of this could be gusty. Actually can't rule out a brief small spin up tornado in there. Not saying we're going to see that, but the possibility is there as we go through the middle of the day tomorrow into the afternoon. And then this line will get on out of here tomorrow night. Then phase 3. is after all this water is on the ground, again, how long do we sit at the freezing mark as we go into Monday morning? Because then that could cause a problem when we get there. There's that storm outlook. It is a level 1. It was mainly kind of making southward. That's been bumped up a little bit farther toward the north. A level 2 actually has been added down into southwest Georgia, including Albany and even Crisp County in our area for a little bit bigger threat. All right, there's another model. This is the NAM, the North American model. It mainly shows northeastern counties here, 6, 7, there's 11 o'clock in the morning, pulls it away, and then there comes that line of thunderstorms through the afternoon. Let's take a look at the high-res model. 2 in the morning, nobody's doing anything. It does show by the time we get into early morning tomorrow, and this one barely grazes right here. So this is important though, because these are when you start to get into these hourly models, they have a pretty good take on things. So this may be the way this actually plays out, that it's nowhere near making as we head on through the morning hours of tomorrow. Shows whatever's there moving away, and then here comes that line of thunderstorms, and we clear it out. As far as the GFS or the American model, overnight into tomorrow morning does the same thing, barely even grazes our northeastern counties there, starts to pull away through the afternoon, then rain, maybe a few thunderstorms as we go into the evening time. Let's go to the European model, and that shows the same kind of scenario. So really, the general consensus is that this is pretty much out of reach for a good chunk of our area, which is a great thing. Something to watch, but it looks like it's almost mainly going to be kind of like I-20 northward, but it does have the possibility to drop down into kind of our northern third of counties there. And there's a look at the thunderstorms coming across as we go through the day. So this looks a little bit different. The graph for the past few days has had this pink shaded area with 1/10 of an inch on down, Macon to Warner Robins. Now it has pulled itself back toward the north too. So yeah, it generally happens once you start getting closer. These models start coming more into line with each other, and the graph is still holding out like, hey, Macon could get some of this. It's thinking a little less to that, but it's not a zero chance. The Euro shows nothing really down here as far as ice totals. There's the GFS, same thing up toward the north. And then as we look at the North American model of the NAM, it's out of reach too. So if you look at all this together, it's mainly just going to be the farther north in our area that you are. And you can see that here. Again, this is worst case scenario, 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch. All that, that freezing line's just got to fluctuate a little bit one way or the other. If it drops just a little farther south, then there are many, many more people getting involved. In the green, of course, mainly rain. A little breakdown of how this whole thing works. Last weekend, this says snow back here, we were dealing with obviously snow. It's snow on the ground, all right? So talking about from the cloud to the ground, freezing all the way. Starts as snow, comes down as snow, hits the ground as snow. Last Sunday morning, it was like, people saying, well, how is it snowing? It's 34, 35 degrees. The surface wasn't quite at freezing, but the snow was being made from above, came down, and actually it can drag that cold air down with it and put a blanket of snow on the ground and actually create its own atmosphere on the ground, and sometimes it'll drag that number down to freezing. We saw that for a little bit last Sunday. Sleet, this is like if we're looking at a cross section of the atmosphere. So this is cold in the blue, warm air in the red. So this is from the cloud. It goes, the air up here is above freezing, it's rain, and then at some point on the way down, it starts to freeze, but it runs out of time to really turn into anything, like snow or anything. So it's a little bit of a mix, a couple of raindrops, a couple of ice pellets. Rain, warm from the top, warm at the bottom, never has a chance to do anything other than just be rain. As we're looking at freezing rain, which is this situation, from the cloud all the way down, it's rain, and then right at the surface, that number is very important. It was not important at the surface really so much last weekend, but this is the whole story this time. It's got to be freezing at the surface. All right, talked about the wind just a moment ago. We're not really seeing these 15 to 20 mile per hour gusts widespread out there right now. That may pick up a little bit as we go through the evening tonight, and then as we head into tomorrow afternoon. You can see that warm front coming up right here. So some wind shear change in direction going on in our southwestern counties, especially southwest Georgia. So that could be where we see a little spin up in a couple of spots there. After this comes across, now it's a northwesterly breeze as we go into tomorrow night into Monday morning, and we're going to keep that wind around as we go through the day on Monday. So what does that do to the wind chill? Well, first of all, a little breeze we have tonight. We may not get to freezing in the Macon area, but it'll feel like it. It could feel like mid-20s. There's tomorrow, storms move through. We get into Monday morning now. Could feel like mid to upper teens out there to start the day Monday. And then we're going to feel like freezing all day Monday, but again, not actually freezing. So we may get if anything does freeze Monday morning, we'll have a little bit of time to get some of that to melt off. And then the feels like number is ridiculous once you get into Tuesday morning. So I talked about that potential for some strong storms as we go through tomorrow. Let me see if I can find where is the STP graphic that I was wanting there? There's a few different ones. That's not the one I want. Again, we're talking about a brief spin up. We're not talking about some sort of huge tornadic environment tomorrow, but there could be a couple of spots that are like, we kind of need to keep an eye on that. Too many elements in my show here. Too many things to choose from. Let's see. Let's go with we'll do this one right here. We'll go with the Euro. It may take a second to load here. I haven't used this graphic in a while, but let's go forward right here. So you do see on the low end of the scale for some sort of a spin in the atmosphere as we go through the afternoon tomorrow as this line is coming on across. And then as we go through the day, that moves away. So again, it's not way up. I mean, we're not into these colors here. It's definitely on the low end. So something to keep an eye on. I think mainly what the threat would be with most of this is going to be gusty winds as it comes on through. Let's go back to the current situation out there. Again, nothing here. But then again, we weren't really expecting much of anything here at this point. It was going to be just like it is now, clouds, maybe a sprinkle or two, and we may have that as we go on through this evening. As we look at the big picture, again, you can see this showing what the models have been saying, which is that the pink shaded area would start up in North Georgia here as we go through the afternoon, and that's what they're seeing. The main moisture content, rain, freezing rain, whatever it is, that's still waiting way back in Mississippi, starting to come into Alabama now. So this is going to be the show for later tonight. And of course, it's all going to depend on the temperature as this is coming in. Again, this is not cloud cover up here. I turned the clouds off. This is all snow. And you're talking about over 1,600 miles long of this winter storm system, putting down snow in many spots, rain down here to the south, and then in the middle in that zone of kind of, it's freezing, it's not freezing, and that's where you get the problem with the mix, the ice, freezing rain situation. So once again, you can see in the blue shaded area, that's our northern counties, basically saying, it's possible here. It's not as likely as it is as you get up to I-20 northward, but it is possible in these areas. And there was an addition earlier that did put in Monroe County, places like that. So again, just above Macon. So you're talking about getting many, many thousands of people more involved in this. If this line, this freezing line, drops down just a little bit more, then it's a bigger story for more people out there. Again, the main ice storm warning is up in North Georgia, and that's where the bigger accumulations are. If we did see anything in these blue shaded counties, probably something like a tenth to maybe a quarter of an inch, which doesn't sound like much of anything, especially when you think of it in the world of rain and snow. But with ice, I can start to put hundreds of pounds of weight on power lines, tree branches, things like that. So obviously this is a much bigger problem up here, a quarter to maybe an inch. So again, the extreme impacts mainly up there, Atlanta to Athens, and this is kind of what the models have been showing for a couple of days, and that we're just barely on the edge down here. It would be a low threat of that. Very minor ice accumulation, obviously, we do see anything. But again, our northern counties could go up to maybe a quarter of an inch. And now you have a quarter of an inch of ice, and then you start to put 20 to maybe 30 mile per hour wind gusts with that. Well, then things are swinging and swaying out there, and they're weighing much more than they normally do because of all the ice on it. And by things, I'm thinking power lines, trees, things like that. And that's where you get power outages. Obviously a bigger story with bigger totals. You can see with the legend there as you get up into the red and even the purple shaded area. So again, with our numbers, probably the big story to me today has been the change that the graph model has gotten on board with most of the other models, finally not showing freezing for the Macon area. And when we do the 6 o'clock hit, I think I'm going to pull in a map that shows a zoom in of some of our counties. I'm doing the big picture right now, but we'll zoom in and actually show future view numbers for all of our spots, and you can kind of see where that line is. So that's interesting that it shows 34 now. Not saying the next model run doesn't come out and it swings back the other way and starts to include Macon a little bit more. Again, this is just where it's trying to figure out where that edge is. But if this is now right, then it is not necessarily for the Macon area, and it is mainly northern counties and definitely North Georgia. So there, as we go into the day tomorrow, again, very fascinating. This is not something you see very often, to have had the threat of ice or maybe even ice in our northern counties. The wedge holds firm as we go through the afternoon. Then this warm sector comes up, and you're talking about a pretty short distance. I mean, I know it takes a while to drive from like Monticello to Cordele, But in the big scheme of things, that's a short distance to go from 30s to 70s as you get into our southern counties. And it's along that kind of battle zone of these temperatures, and then with wind shifting, that we could see some thunderstorms, and again, maybe a little spin up in there, but mainly gusty winds with those storms that'll be coming on across. So yeah, phase one, do we see any ice tonight or tomorrow morning? Maybe northern counties. Tomorrow, that line of sort of strong to severe storms is not a big threat, but something to watch. And then tomorrow night into Monday morning, we do go to freezing, and you can see it right here. It may be toward Monday morning before it happens, and then we only sit there for maybe a handful of hours, and then we start to warm back up. So is that long enough to freeze and really cause a problem? Might be. But let's dig in on some more of this coming up in a little bit. We are now within the weather impact alert that we've been forecasting, so it is now getting into tonight. We're kind of underway, just kind of keeping an eye on things. Lori.
Thanks a lot, Ben. We're going to be back in just a few minutes with more weather coverage in our area. Remember, you can stream our radar live 24/7. Download the QR code and download the app for free.